Rauta's weekend videos. This time it's all about Steelfest 2023. That festival being 1 week behind us, maybe it's time to do a little bit of recap. What went wrong, what went well, and what was just general, more like a neutral, but obviously good thing, because after all, we wouldn't go to festivals if they were that bad, really. That being said, as an introduction, here let's take Steelfest website as the backdrop with the great art and some of the band listings. And as a lot of you people know, there was some major lineup changes the last minute, only a few days before the actual festival began. And for some people it was a blessing in disguise when bands like Nocturnal Martyrdom, Dödheimskord and Vedbuens Ende got replaced by the last minute changes. Finnish bands such as Kalmankanta, Warmoonlord and Satanic Warmaster. Some people were just outright happy. I mean, they were not exactly supposed to see these Finnish legendary bands, but as it was the case, when you have a limited amount of time, maybe it's not so easy to get bands from the foreign countries. But people coming from, I guess, places like United States or Canada or whatever, like overseas basically, they don't get to see these Finnish bands, so it might be even rare for them to see these bands instead of just the ones that I mentioned. Now, my personal opinion is, of course, that I would have wanted to see those bands, especially Dödheimskord, because I've never seen them, and then again, I've seen a lot of times, many times, bands like Warmoonlord, Kalmankanta, Satanic Warmaster, etc. But overall, this is, in my opinion, a very small issue. But that comes to the very point of this video. I mean, there are like 2 points, but yeah, like I'd say, sometimes those lineup changes don't matter that much. And one of the reasons is I always miss way too many bands anyway. That is not a good thing, obviously, because after all, festival is supposed to be about bands. But I've said this a million times and I keep saying it more and more again. For me, it's most about the people. It's more about friends. It's more about the bands that I get to interview and all that stuff. So once again, it's more about people than the actual bands on stage. Might sound really weird when you think about it. I mean, you're going to a festival where people in general spend a lot of money and then you're going to miss a lot of the shows. But for me, it's been like this triangle with, like, you know, 1/3 is about seeing the bands on stage. 1/3 is about, you know, hanging out with your friends and talking this and that, because sometimes you meet friends you haven't seen for years, literally. And of course, the third part is, of course, you know, doing the interviews. So it's about seeing bands, seeing friends, doing interviews, job and stuff, social. But when I'm getting older, I almost feel like maybe it's actually 50% about like-minded people, because while there are a lot of decent bands you might actually want to see, say, if there were less friends and all that stuff, in the end also you're kind of bound to put them a little bit on the background. This is not to disrespect the bands or say that they are not worthwhile. This is more like saying sometimes you have to make those tough choices. Sometimes it's all about, okay, me having the beer here, the band over there, and my friends here. Obviously kind of focus everything 100%, but that's just something that is bound to happen. We are social animals after all. If we were not, we probably wouldn't go to festivals in the first place. But this is just my opinion saying about that. And I know there are lots of people who are like me, and then there are lots of people who just go from show to show and etc. and they really don't spend that much time with friends. Maybe they don't have friends, I don't know. Or maybe they just don't care. It's fine. My point here is it doesn't matter what I think or what the guy next to you thinks about what is the perfect way to experience a festival. What matters is, was it worth your money and time to do that the way you wanted to, the way you execute it. Now, me personally, there were lots of interesting bands. I already went through that with my preview videos, so maybe that's no point to kind of recap the thing here all over again. But overall, Steelfest 2023 was a blast. And for a lot of these reasons which I just mentioned. First of all, it was really, really great to see those good friends and some even less acquainted friends, but, you know, people I enjoy spending my time with nonetheless. So that was part of the charm. Having a little bit sauna experience with my pals, Otto, Aro, Chris, and just venturing towards the festival area to have a little more talks, to see some bands play on stage, do those interviews, which mean also hanging out with my camera people and all that stuff. All that was really great. So for me, once again, Steelfest was indeed the way to start the summertime. The whole warm year when it's like flushing in, and it comes with bands, friends, and beyond. Obviously, it's as much about just enjoying cold beverages, beer and whatnot with your friends. So once again, I keep saying this, I know I'm repeating myself here, but it's also a lot about the socializing in a way that you also get to see those good bands whenever you want to, but you're not forced to see something like hey, I'm gonna miss my chance of a lifetime if I don't catch that band or the full gig or whatever. Now, being all this rambling about being social with your friends and people and blah blah blah, it's time to mention some of the names that really made an impact for me. Now, mind you, I skipped way too many bands, some of them unintentionally, like for example when we had those sauna mornings. We might just arrive to the area like, I don't know, 3:30 or something like that, or 4 p.m., which means the early bands were like out of the question right away. Then there were lots of bands which I had to sacrifice when I was doing an interview, and the times would be overlapping. That's mandatory shit I never get to avoid at Steelfest, but what can you do when the band starts so early and it's not really possible to do those interviews after the festival day or even before that, especially when the bands are located rather far away. So these are kind of bound to happen. And some friends of mine even said it's goddamn hard to catch me up at the festival, like saying you're always going to some interview and whatever, and there's no time to talk. And still I feel like I talk a lot with my pals and all that stuff. Now, some of the gigs that made a really, really good impact in me were bands like, say, Beheksen. I didn't watch the whole show. I was kind of late to that. But for example, to see those guys play after so many years, it was really like, yeah, it's like they never went away. It's like they never had a pause with that. And, that was fierce. Probably my favorite of all bands, which I got to see and which was actually on my list quite high, was Nordgivel. That was like some fierce Norwegian black metal experience, almost like getting back to the 90s, even though the band didn't exist back in the days. So seeing a show like that was like, I should probably see more shows. But I'll be honest with you, there were also a lot of bands that I wasn't that much interested really. And those are the bands that I just decided to skip. And I'm not going to even name them. I don't want to make you feel like, okay, my band is not good enough for you. Of course it is, basically. But for example, when I skipped, say, a band like Hail Conjure, it is not because I dislike the music, but I've seen them before, or him, it's one guy doing the show, and I don't have to see it every year. Same applies to Kolmanganda. I think their recent material is, I think, very, very good. The best of the pile for them. Same could be said about Total Self-Hatred. So I don't need to see the same guys every year. So when I have to sacrifice something, it's gonna be for those bands. I know it kind of sucks. Then there was a band by my friends called Ymir, which I wanted to see from the beginning, but because we are sauna, kind of took more time than I was expecting it to. I kind of got to see something like 1/3 of a show, roughly, give or take. But that was their first show. I am trying to soothe myself saying, yeah, it's going to be better later on when they will play. Seeing Austria play on stage was a little bit different than what I was expecting, but they sounded good. And it got me to the mood in order to get the interview going. And then there are bands like Horna, which I've seen so many times that even though the guys are friends and I know they play solid show, I was just going to sacrifice them. I wanted to see the committee, for instance, another time because I've seen them so many years and it was really good, and somehow I failed to do it. So by dropping these names, I'm kind of trying to say that sometimes there are bands which I I'm kind of sad to have missed. Some bands I sacrificed because of other reasons, and some bands I just see partially because of lots of being busy all the time. For example, Coraxul, which I went to see in the beginning, that was actually the surprise band in that sense that I saw pretty much most of the show. Even though there were a lot bigger bands which I could have seen, like Gehenna, I see only some of the show. Non-Slaughter, the same thing. And I could go on with the list. Urgehal was one of the most anticipated ones, but I had forgotten my earplugs, and the inside stage was so noisy that even though I enjoyed the show, and they're kind of a super raw sounding and the fierceness on stage, I just couldn't be there. My ears were basically hurt. So it was kind of like it's gonna suck for me to leave the gig halfway, but I mean, like, I had to choose whether I'm gonna have my ears ringing the next couple of days, or then I'm just gonna jump the ship and leave early. So various reasons why I didn't see so many bands, and this time I think I missed more than I should have done. But on hindsight, I also say no regrets. Why so? Because I did a bunch of interviews which I'm really happy for. Now, some interviews are always better than the rest, so it's not like all of them can be the best ones I've done. Obviously, this also comes to personal liking of certain bands. For example, some of you might not give a damn about any of these interviews, which I'm going to mention. And some of them you might be like, yeah, I'm just going to watch everything because you like interviews. And some of you like gonna just go cherry picking, like, okay, these and that are my likings and these are gonna check out, and the rest can just piss off. Anyway, so 6 interviews were done, and that was pretty much what I was aiming for. I tried to get like 2 interviews per day, so it doesn't tax too much me or my camera crew. I mean, once again, bouncing too much back and forth makes us miss a lot of bands, I guess. And also, there's this waiting time and missing time schedules. It's so much hassle that sometimes I feel like less would be better. But then again, there I am at the festival doing these festivals, so it's kind of a trade out kind of thing. Anyway, so the first band I got to interview was Utuksul, which I'm not really proud of. The main problem was their English were not that good. So the interview is kind of a shortish, 15 minutes give or take. And it's going to be a little bit weird in that sense because guys didn't speak that much English. There's actually quite a bit of Spanish included. And might be kind of hard to follow at some points, but at least it's something different, and I wanted to pay kind of homage to these Colombian dudes because you really don't get to see a lot of Colombian bands in Finland that often. Another Colombian band which wasn't even pre-agreed, but decided to do on the spot because there were like a little bit free time and some other band get cancelled with interviews, was Witchcraft. Basically, I had screwed my own schedule with Friday and Saturday, and there I was like, fuck, too many bands on Saturday, not enough bands on Friday, and I was like trying to make it happen. So Witchcraft came to the help basically, and it was really good. Really, really nice chaps, and I think we had a really, really relaxed talking. Then again, I can't say I am really familiar with the band that much, so I guess it kind of shows that I don't know their music really, and I don't know the history. But I think the overall result was better than expected given these facts. Other bands I got to interview was Osier from Australia. I think that was one of my highlights personally because, I mean, these guys come from all the way from Australia and the music is really good, very atmospheric black metal coming from a little bit different angle than a lot of bands. So this was something that I was stoked for and they didn't let me down. I had a good time with those guys, so yeah. And I think my highlights included bands like Carpathian Forest. Why so? Because this is something I explained on the interview, but I'm going to recap it here as well. Not Frost, the mastermind of Carpathian Forest, was one of the first ones I ever got to do for Rauta in 2017. Back then you really couldn't like do background check. What is this channel? What kind of interviews he does and blah, blah, blah. And he's still like, let's do it. And we had some good time, and actually it's one of the most watched videos on Rauta anyway. So it was my like calling, like I want to talk again to this guy who treated me well. We had like a mutual respect, and give more views for his band. I mean, first of all, I know Carpathian Forest is good live band. Couldn't see much of them at this year, but what I saw was like fierce. And I think Nutterfirst is way more healthy now, and you really could see and hear how he speaks and probably the live performance as well, even though 2017, no complaints whatsoever. So that was definitely something that I wanted to go back to because, you know, once again, give my homage to the guy who gave me chance to do my interviews back in the days, and also because I think he has a long history in Norwegian black metal, so deserves my attention, your attention, audience, and all that stuff. Also, something that isn't listed here was Svartjern, and why so? Well, because these guys actually play in Carpathian Forest, or basically Carpathian live lineup is minus Nutterfirst is exactly Svartjern Kais. So I was like, okay, we should do that also because now you're here anyway, and it's gonna be interesting how that unfolds. And there is one member of Nutterfirst as well at the Carpathian Forest interview. So these kind of stuff happen, and I'm really happy about it. And on the other hand, I'm a little bit sad I couldn't get the Pest or Satanic Warmaster interview happening, because that I think was something that was I was hoping for to, you know, make that happen. And Gehenna interview unfortunately didn't take place. That was one of my biggest disappointments, because we had a good connection with the guys, but I guess they were just too busy, maybe a little bit too drunk too as well. So we didn't get to do the interviews, even though the guys and me will seem to click. So I guess we just have to do Gehenna interview another time. That is something that I really want to do. Respecting their career, liking their music, and liking those guys. I mean, it's just bound to happen if you ask me. And yeah, of course, Nunslaughter. That was one of the really, really relaxed talks also, which I really liked. So I guess I can say I'm mostly happy about it. Would I give the whole thing with the schedule changes, missed bands, and some cancelled interviews 5 out of 5? Not really, but I would solidly give like 4 out of 5. Overall feeling, however, for me, Steelfest weekend from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 out of 5. Meeting all the friends, seeing some of those bands, enjoying the overall atmosphere in general. Everything was great. Sun was shining, beverages were like decently priced, no fights, no arguments, all just good time. This might be even weird for people like, hey, I'm going to extreme metal show. How come nobody has a fight? How come nobody gets hurt? Where is all the bleeding? Everybody's having good time. What is this madness? But yeah, it is. I mean, if you get to feel and witness, experience Steelfest firsthand, rather than reading some unknown internet commentary about it, it's gonna be something that you are most likely going to love. Assuming that is you like black metal and bands related to black metal in the first place. I mean, if you don't, then Steelfest is no use for you. But once again, it's one of those festivals that really make you feel like why live music is there, why you have all these friends you connect with, you have good chemistry, you have good talks and all that stuff. So, already waiting for Steelfest 2024. What can I say? Doesn't matter even how much how is the lineup going to be, because I just love this kind of stuff. Some bands are not my thing, and it's fine. Just gives me more excuse to have a little bit of a beer with my friends and all that stuff. But once again, Steelfest really didn't disappoint me. Like I said, the only disappointments were like missing Gehenna interview and all that stuff. But beyond that, can't really complain. So good times, and looking already for Steel Chaos 2023 in October, and then soon after that, only a few months away, we have once again Steelfest coming up with some kind of interesting lineup. And of course I will be doing previews of those festivals when the information is out there, so stay tuned. Now, should you have questions or comments about the Steelfest, I'm happy to address them if you put them in the comments box below. And let me know if I can help you with information and whatnot. And there it is. See you at Steelfest next year, I hope. This is Rauta, this is Steelfest, and stay tuned for those interviews. Bye-bye.